So, hello and welcome to another one in a series of Fireside chats here at NodeConf EU. I'm here with Luca Maraschi.
Perfect.
And it's great to see you again, Luca.
It's fantastic.
You've been a feature at NodeConf since I first started coming here in 2015. So it's really great to see you here again. Would you like to just introduce yourself and just let us know who you are and what you do?
A pleasure. So I'm clearly Luca Maraschi, Italian. You can hear from my accent. I traveled the world and I finally settled in Vancouver, Canada.
Very nice.
Where I am currently working in TELUS Digital, and I'm the chief architect at TELUS Digital. Great adventure, great place. And actually, we met exactly probably 5 years ago or 4 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 2015.
15, right?
Yes.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
Long time.
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So, you're a lead architect now.
Yeah.
What does architecture mean to you?
Ooh, interesting. I think I love architecture. I think architecture is a beautiful way of expressing creativity and a little bit of sparkle of genius.
Yeah.
And a little bit of looking ahead of time, trying to predict what comes next, and at the same time solving nowadays problems and try to help the business to grow and to innovate. Architecture for me is I don't want to ruin what Kian always say, that open source is art, but I think architecture it's a great form of art in technology, right? Where we see patterns, where we see people creating this new way of solving problems. And at the same time, with my nuclear physics background, I can say that it's a beautiful way to simplify and down to the matter and down to the atomic particles our problems. And to reference the great Roman philosopher say that divide and conquer. And that's where I love architecture, because it's the perfect expression of all those principles put together. And at the same time, I told you that kind of magic sparkle of craziness, genius, and trying to fight the status quo. That's what I love about architecture.
So you don't just see it as a, I'm going to say, box drawing exercise that you just throw over to the developers to get on with?
Draw a lot of boxes, but I love whiteboarding because they are always different. I feel an artist, right?
Yeah.
The whiteboard is a canvas, but nowadays the whiteboard doesn't even exist anymore, right? Your canvas can become the cloud, can become Vim. It's the only thing that I use to code. It's not anymore for me that kind of boxing exercise, throwing across the fence to developers and say, you do it, right? It's nice because it's becoming some sort of DSL. It's a nice specific language that we kind of design within the organization, also to have a common way of expressing and moving forward. So no, I don't think it's just a slide deck. I'm very bad in building slide decks, so I love to have my marker, draw my stuff on my Moleskine with my pens. It makes me feel like back to being a child, right? A kid. You just draw with your crayons on a piece of paper and you build these beautiful stories.
And it's also, what I find is, because I work with architects all the time, it's that sort of, we're solving problems together, and it's creating the beginnings of a blueprint, not necessarily the end product, which is the thing that I find the most rewarding when working together with architects.
Yeah, and it's a growth path, right? So you go from in your career to trying to draw every single detail inside of this box, and the more you grow, the more you are kind of appreciating the collaborative way of how ideas can grow, being augmented, and also being challenged, right? The nicest thing of being an architect and being a leader is the fact that I love when people feel free to challenge me, because at the end of the day, in technology, there is only one very important thing, in my perspective, that is learning.
Yeah.
And that's the most beautiful thing. When you have this beautiful square and you say, this one is like a service mesh, right? And then you have the team to start to put blocks inside of it, question why to have it, discuss how to build a Kubernetes cluster, right? you always you always start from this rectangular square box, right? And then you start to put things in, and that's where I love the collaborative side of interacting with other architects, engineers, and also business people, right? Because we don't have to forget about them. At the end, we are serving
we
a
are there
business
to
purpose.
build products, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're not there to just do it for fun.
Yeah, exactly. We are not like a research and development. Business enterprise especially does a lot of research, but at the same time, we need to be a profitable business, and technology serves as an accelerator for business. So that's what we always need to keep in mind. So our craziness and creativity has boundaries, right?
Yeah.
That's architecture. It's just drawing that 4 lines, that rectangle or a square, and work within those boundaries, those constraints, those requirements.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating. It's beautiful. It's like being almost a book writer, a storyteller, right?
Yeah. So in your talk, you were talking about the architecture of a system you're working on now, and something that I picked up on that I'm really interested in was that you're using Elasticsearch. So I'm also I work on the search team for the BBC now, so I've got Solr on my side, but you're not using Elasticsearch to solve a search problem per se. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you are using it for?
Yeah, so this idea came to my mind a few years ago when I was still working in consultancy, and I had a challenge to solve that was a large volume distribution problem for an old customer. And I always thought that story was incomplete. There was something missing. That equation was not completed. I couldn't, formalize and finalize it. Until we didn't take a step back as soon as I joined TELUS, and we look at our big data structure.
Yeah.
And we said we have a logistical complexity that we need to solve to distribute data assets across the organization in a self-serve way. And so if you look at the traditional kind of data structures, they are purely connected to the concept of data lake or enterprise data warehouse. So this kind of monolith that they aggregate data. And I thought there must be something crazy and better that we can do, right? And so we start to look into the value of our data sets and our consumers, right? And in this kind of journey, we discovered that our APIs, our system of integrations, they were the system that they needed data in a different structure, right? So Elasticsearch was a very natural fit in this picture, because we reimagine what if we transform all our data set into this humongous graph. Because at the end of the day, we all write joins, and joins are relationship, right?
Yeah.
And we either keep this relationship normalized or we denormalize them. But denormalizing relationship cause a problem of deduplication, data management, data consistency. It becomes a hairy problem to solve. And so we said, if we build a graph, those relationships, they are already part of the data structure itself, right?
Yeah.
So we have edges, we have vertex, we know how to aggregate data. And so we look into some graph databases, but they were not solving the most important problem, that is speed, distribution, and also the graph database is by definition persistent. But we know that data is mutable, it changes continuously, right?
Yeah.
And so we said, why don't we just think, instead of building a cache that is very complicated to manage, why don't we think about an ephemeral layer where all entities they are pushed to, and we work with the flexibility that Elastic gives us as a search engine, right?
Yeah.
And we said, at the end of the day, what we do are all, if we imagine our system into a purely heavily read system, right? Because that's what you do when you consume a website or a mobile application, or you need to run reporting. You make a lot of get, a lot of select. So we said, well, at the end we are running just a glorified set of searches in our system, right? That can be key-based, attribute-based, composite-based, it doesn't matter. We make searches. And so we said, well, Elasticsearch fits the picture, right? So the structure behind the scene is a distributed key value storage with a graph possibility. And so we said, we can just use it to power all our APIs. And if we change from a passive model to a reactive model to push data into this ephemeral data storage, we can have low latency, and we can just solve that logistical complexity just all in once, because at the end we are pushing data as close as possible to the consumption layer that are our APIs.
Yeah, and it's a really nice solution to a problem that you had there, using technology that is been around. It's hardened technology as well, so it's not like this is new, this is massively experimental. It's just such an elegant way to do it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I put the sparkle of craziness into this idea, right? Because nowadays with the cloud, we have different ways of solving this problem. We could, in the past, I used a way crazier mad science idea, right, of pushing data instead of to an elastic, to an elastic data set. I was pushing it to S3 directly. So when you were calling APIs, we had Nginx to proxy pass and go straight into S3. And that's how a little bit our Athena also worked, kind of was born in our, at the time, and Amazon was really impressed by this crazy idea of querying data from a file storage, right? A little bit like a big data system, but our real-time APIs at the time in a previous work experience, they were all powered by this trick.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we accept the fact that data shouldn't be strongly consistent, because the world is eventually consistent. And so if we accept that fact, and we accept that certain degree of uncertainty of the system, then we can build a way more resilient and cost-effective system. So, and it's a little bit kind of inspired on the banking and transactional system, on basically how transactions they work. And I think actually is not only an elegant way, is a way that allows the team to experiment almost at no cost. Because we can reinvent new models, new views on top of those models without impacting data pipelines or anything else.
Yeah, that's great, thank you. So finally, I'm going to have to draw this to a close, even though I could talk to you for hours about this. Probably will later. I wanted to ask, where do you think things are going to go technology-wise in the next 3 years?
It's a very nice question. I have my view, and it's mostly related to cloud and the business around cloud, right? I think we will see a huge transformation in the cloud ecosystem, where we will see clouds to become highly federated, and we will not actually develop solution only on a single cloud, but we will actually have solutions that they will be by nature distributed and federated across multiple clouds. Look at Arc, look at Anthos on GCP and Arc on Azure. AWS will be for sure the next one that will allow to do cross-federated services. So that's definitely where I foresee the world to change, right, and to move forward in technology. The other thing that I'm really curious to see happening is how we're going to evolve the world of functions, right? I've been an advocate of functions since the inception, and say that that's the best way. The world will transform into a workflow. So I'm very curious to see how we will transform the developer experience and optimize time to delivery and cost of delivery for enterprises, where we should make all those functionalities, all this math science, some sort of commodity.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much. And it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Lovely. Thanks again.